we'll go ahead and get things started here. Um, Thank you for those that are joining today. And as the title suggests, we're going to be doing an unboxing of Purple Haze, which finally has arrived to my house just yesterday, actually. So only just got this. And I'll start by giving a little bit of a background of this game. I originally backed it on GameFound. What looks to be about over 2 years ago now. It said this was funded, according to the GameFound page, back on January of 2022. The original targeted shipping date was apparently March of 2023, and now only just now are backers getting this game. So it definitely was delayed. Not a surprise for me, because so many of these Kickstarter games or crowdfunded board games seem to be delayed at least a year. I'd love to see this. I'm sure it's out there somewhere, the statistics on typical delay of a crowdfunded board game. I have to imagine it's about a year, if not maybe closer to two. But nonetheless, finally arrived, and this is essentially a 1 to 4 player Vietnam war game / adventure game is what I would describe it. What caught my attention is the fact, first of all, it's cooperative and can be played solitaire, and that's something that always immediately appeals to me with the board game. And then what this game is trying to accomplish, in that there's this tactical aspect to the game where you will be having armed, combat where you're rolling dice like a traditional war game, but then you're going from a location to location across this map, and sometimes you'll encounter various situations that you're going to be required to make a decision, and that decision may have lasting effects and that sort of thing. It kind of gave me almost like a Robin Crusoe vibe, mixed with a war game. So it was just doing a lot of things that I've never seen a board game do, and that's ultimately why I decided I had to back this game. So let's not belabor the point, and let's just simply open the box up. As you can see, I haven't even taken the shrink wrap off, so this is a true live unboxing. And my disclaimer, that I didn't research, this. I originally looked up this game over like 2 years ago, right? So I don't remember every single aspect of what this game offers. By the way, you can also, of course, see a couple other aspects of my pledge. Two expansions, and this is kind of like a little, what would I call it? Kickstarter exclusive. They call it Marine Squad Miniature. I'm not sure if this is, has actual gameplay value or if it's more of just a token. Nonetheless, want to mention that. Now, something I find interesting is it does say game play time from 90 to 720 minutes. I did think this was like a campaign style board game. So I typically, when those types of board games usually just quote the time it takes to play one session of the game, not the full campaign. But realistically, those games would take hundreds of minutes if the board game publisher really wanted to be honest about the game length. So I find that funny that Phalanx decided to put the 720 minute mark on the box. But okay, so here we go. First thing is the rule book, and I'll page through this for everyone because I always enjoy a good rule book. And let's see what we have here. So first off, it's a total of 62 pages, and I'll try to bring this over to this cam. This camera. Apologize for the color. I never can get the coloring right for these cameras, but I think this does a little better job of zooming in for you guys. So 62 total pages. Here we have all the different components in the game, which, as you can see, there's a lot going on. The one thing that I will immediately point out that has changed since the initial inception of this game, to my disappointment, I would say, is the combat resolution. I don't know how. I have not read through the comments at all for the. I never do that for my crowdfunded board game. So there's probably a lot of like frustration amongst backers for decisions that get made by the publisher throughout the process after the game's been funded. I personally know for a fact they changed how the combat resolution system works from what they initially showed. And it's frustrating because initially it was like this cool field of view system where basically this kind of reminded me almost of taking what you do in the game Time Stories, where you have like this point of view image of what you're looking at, and then you can interact with like different areas of what you're actually seeing, kind of like basically bringing you into the game itself, which you don't see very often in board game. And I think it's a really cool idea. And since Time Stories, I'm sure other games have tried to do that, what Time Stories does. But anyway, that's what they were trying to do in this board game originally, is that when you have a combat, you get this field of view of the enemies and where they are, and kind of simulated the distances too. And instead they've ended up, I guess, just going to this very basic 2D combat board for combat instead. I'm not sure all the background of what went into that decision. But anyway, that was a little disappointing to me. Nonetheless, tons of different components. We'll be looking at these as I go through the rest of the contents of the game. Learning the game, setup. I don't want to spend too much time on going over every page here of the rule book, so I'm kind of going through it quickly. But as you can see, it looks like a normal game. You might even though the game says 1 to 4 players, it looks like a standard game has you playing with 6 characters, and not sure how the game necessarily tells you to divide up the characters, but each character, as you can see described on this page, will have different weapons and equipment. That appeals to me. I like games that allows you to equip your characters with different items and weapons and stuff. And typically that's like a fantasy game. So this is a war game that's using that type of idea, right? So this is kind of like a war game RPG in a sense, and that's also something you just don't see very often in the board gaming world, is a war game trying to combine itself with RPG elements. So this game in general was still doing a lot of things I just haven't seen done before. So the rule book at first glance is pretty text heavy. There definitely is. There are some illustrations, but not quite as many as I would maybe like to see given the amount of text. But hopefully all the rules are there. So that's the rule book. Let's get back to what's coming next in the box, which is a mission booklet. All right. Well, again, maybe this was mentioned specifically at some point in the crowdfunding process of the project, but something I'm not sure I am a fan of is the fact that they have individual mission booklets for every single mission. That seems a little excessive. Obviously, every other campaign game I've ever come across has just the mission booklet, the campaign guide, whatever you want to call it, as one booklet. And in this game, everything is its own. Every mission is its own booklet. So I'm not exactly sure why they made that decision, but let's open up one of these. I don't want to spoiler alert here. But I want to show you what one of these looks like on the inside. This one's called Crash. Some nice flavor text, intro, start the campaign. Looks like we have, starting location on the map where your squads are, and you can see how there's these story element tokens that you can go to for, they call them event markers. So, and I think they would, you interact with them and you then read a paragraph, right? So very adventure-y, which I think is a fun idea to do that for a war game. Looks like these might be the paragraphs that you would actually be reading throughout the mission. So again, try not, don't read anything too closely. And as with a lot of a lot of adventure games, I should say, some of these paragraph checks turn into actual conflicts or confrontations where you'll be resolving a combat. And, again, hate to spoil anything here, but this at least I think does a good job of describing what a combat then would look like. It basically lays out the starting situation of your units, where they are and what their situation is, and then where the enemies are located on the combat board, which I'll be showing here shortly. And then you resolve the combat, I'm sure, and depending on what happens in that combat, you read paragraph A, B, C, that sort of thing. And obviously you're trying to then achieve the final objective, which interestingly, it doesn't immediately say what the here we go, primary objective. So it does say that in this mission: return to the base when you reach the base end. So that's what you're trying to do in this mission. Obviously there's much more text I'm not reading to give you that set up why you're trying to, of course, return to the base. It's called Crash, so it does just start by saying, Huey down, you were about halfway to the landing zone when you got hit by the enemy fire. So you're playing, looks like your helicopter crashes and you're just trying to get back to base in this mission. But it looks like then you have your starting weapons and items to call it out for the mission. So anyway, that's one mission of several that come with the game. And I'm not actually, so now I don't want to necessarily say with confidence that these missions then are necessarily connected in a way, or if you literally are just choosing a mission, you don't even have to start with the first one and you play through it, and then you could play through whichever one next you want. But needless to say, I'm not sure I'm a fan of the fact that they have a bunch of separate mission books. And again, I'm sure that was described at some point in the background, or the Phalanx explained. Sorry, I was looking at a comment. Some guy mentioned. I posted about this on Facebook, and some guy was complaining about the 64-page rulebook. Well, with that said, something that's also in the box, getting back to the next thing, is this Marine's Handbook. Now, this Marine's Handbook is described as a supplement to the main rulebook. It provides additional supporting information to understand how to play Purple Haze and background resources for players interested in learning more about the subject matter. It's the way that this is brought to me is just frustrating, because I'm not sure, like it says then it comprises a quick start guide, so it almost makes me think this is what you should read before bothering to dig into the big rule book that they also have in the game. But it also isn't saying that blatantly. And here it says quick start guide. It's a relatively simple game in terms of basic actions, but being a sandbox style game, it needs rules to cover unlikely edge cases. If you don't want to read it, that's fine. You can read this guide. It's a primer to allow you to begin to play the game. However, a caveat: it's necessary that at least one person playing the game has read the main rulebook. So I would like to think this still is a helpful, starting guide. I have a feeling that it's too simple to really be of much value to actually get into the game. It looks like it tries to teach you though some of the game through tutorial style texts, which is always nice. That's something I wish complex games did more of, and I don't see that, in my opinion, done enough. And hopefully that information is useful. But anyway, this is something else that comes with the game to help you learn it. Okay, so next we have this logbook, which looks like it's, of course, supposed to be used to keep track of various aspects of going through a campaign. So I guess circling back to what I was saying a few minutes ago, it does look like you are encouraged to, go through all missions together, and I guess you get a score for each mission that you would then keep track on this basic document. Although I feel like this is kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say it's a waste of paper, but, well, I guess there's more to it here, where you're tracking different aspects of your squad as you play through the campaign. So anyway, there's that. Next, we have what I would say is kind of like a mini map that's specifically for Quanglong or Quanglong City is how I'm going to pronounce that. And another disclaimer: I'm not a Vietnam War expert by any means, so I'm sorry if I'm doing the history of this game any injustice by not saying things correctly or being a little more, what's the word? Colorful about how this game actually evokes the Vietnam era as a board game. I just like war games in general, and like I said, for many reasons, thought this game sounded really exciting. Anyway, going back to this little board map that I assume is used in conjunction or using maybe some of the missions. I don't know if it would be used in all the missions. Here we have what it looks more like a information display tracker. Let's see if I can find the correct term for this component. But obviously you're tracking the time of day up here and other aspects of the conditions, maybe of your squad. This kind of looks like a fatigue track to me as you go throughout the mission. The tracker, it's called the tracker board. I'm always a fan of simple names too. Okay, so that's that. Now we have a huge, well, not, I guess it kind of is big. Oh, a bunch of reference sheets. Well, and again, these are separate documents, and this is something that I'm not sure I'm a big fan of. But let's go through each of them. So we have an iconography overview, of which there's a decent amount of iconography, as you can see. And then on the back, enemy markers guide. I'm sure. So these are, of course, the types of enemy units that you'll be coming across once you do those combats. As I was showing in that mission booklet, eventually you'll come across some sort of event and boom, enemies are on the board, and these are what the enemy tokens will look like, and each enemy token is representing a different type of unit with different combat capabilities. And I guess there's also tactic markers that further provide additional flavor to the enemies when you're attacking them. So that's that reference sheet. Next we have squad actions. I guess assuming what you can actually do on your turn. And again, as I did mention already, this game does pull from elements of RPG games. So you do have like you're taking tests throughout the game with your Marines. Now you're not just shooting things; you're actually doing tests of the different traits. I want to say tests of fortitude, but I don't know if fortitude is actually one of the attributes you have in the game for your Marines. But I do remember when I first read about this game like 2 years ago that those were some of the things that you might have to do when you're playing a mission. So, sorry, I was trying to figure out exactly. Yeah, so I guess here it describes there's trait tests and then there's combat tests. So anyway, but that's what that reference sheet's for. More charts for squad actions. I'm not even going to begin to try to interpret what all of this is trying to say, but combat resolution, okay, I can understand combat resolution, or what that means at least. So lots of stuff going on here. And on the back, more combat resolution flowcharts. Then we have end of mission. As you can see, this is probably where the campaign aspect of Purple Haze comes in, because you are gaining experience for your squad that I assume you can spend somehow for bonuses. And then there's an R&R phase. Oh, I see. Okay, so based on your score, you're rolling a d6, and then depending on what you roll, your Marines hopefully recover optimally, I guess, to put it simply. There's this R&R phase town. Oh, okay. So depending on if you do your R&R phase in a base or town, you have different potential outcomes, which I guess is thematic. Or you guess you could be doing your R&R phase in Da Nang, which provides a different, I guess, list of potential outcomes. I don't know if how complicating the R&R phase for 3 separate locations, if that was necessary or not, but I haven't played the game yet, so hopefully it adds a thematic flavor to the game. So let's get on to the next stuff in this box, which are the tokens, starting with all these. And let's see if I can, as quickly as possible, explain what we're looking at right now. These are damage markers, and then these are called stress markers. These are boon markers. These are called experience markers. So that's what all of, and then we have point man marker here. these are air artillery and airstrike markers, and then we have reminder slash forbidden markers. So that's that. Next we have a bunch of different types of equipment, which these are self-explanatory. Looks like ammo, which I imagine you eventually, the game simulates actual ammo usage of your weapons. So you do need to worry about having ammo on you for your guns. Don't want to assume every gun it has ammo being tracked. Maybe it's just for machine guns, but regardless, ammo, smoke grenades, frag grenades, looks like gasoline and flak jackets. And the back is, they're they have different. They actually do kind of have different values. Well, anyway, so that's that. I need to try to make it simple for me to put things back together. All right, the next. Wow. Okay, so this next token sheet has a bunch of these circles, and I don't genuinely. Okay, they're called soft cover markers. I guess these are used in the game for soft cover. And then you have all of these, which are called these are the Marine activation markers. So representing, in your squad, you have 6 roles for your Marines. And of course so you have the squad leader, radio operator, infantryman, scout, engineer, and the corpsman. So, or medic, I guess, is what that represents. And each are good at specific traits and have unique skills associated, related to their role. So going back kind of to the RPG aspect of this game, which again I thought was pretty cool. Okay, so this tray or sheet, sorry about knocking the camera there. This is where we got the actual enemy counters. So we have 19 of what are just called enemy markers with different symbology, illustrating, I'm sure, some being more difficult than others to defeat. These are just called combat markers. And then we have the tactic markers, and then more, it looks like, types of ammo. And okay, so yeah, this is automatic fire ammo is what they call it, and then the bigger ammo was for the machine gun ammo. So that's what this counter sheet is. Next counter sheet, we have hardcover markers, or what these are. Then we have landing zone markers. These are the event markers. They have the book on the other side. And then looks like these are EAZ. So I'm actually not sure what EAZ stands for. That's a little bit beyond my Vietnamese or Vietnam War vocabulary, but that's what these are. EAZ markers. These are no aimed shot markers, so I'm not sure what that actually necessarily means off the top of my head. And then ID markers. Somehow there's this line of sight piece that maybe helps with line of sight somehow. And then these are called walking wounded / PO prisoner of war markers. And then these are double-sided littered / KIA markers. So that's that counter sheet. And that's it for the counter sheets. Hopefully You guys are all still here with me after um, going through all that. And next in the box we have a double-sided map. So map of the southern and map of northern and southern area of operation. So again, depending on, so this is technically the southern area of operation. These icons, I remember, represent the different types of, are illustrating the type of terrain, the main type of terrain associated with that geographic area of the map, which I thought was very thematic. I assume it, of course, aligns to the actual geographic map itself. So I'm just going to assume like you have mountainous areas, more jungly areas. It doesn't say on here what the specific map location icons mean, of course. I'm sure there's a chart. I'm sure it's maybe on one of those reference sheets. Oh, here we go. Actually, I found it. So you have, well, one of them says urban. I'm just not, I'm not immediately seeing the urban icon on the map, but there's urban, then there's hilly, which is this one, then there's mountainous, which are the pointy ones, and then you have jungle, which is like the palm tree, and then you have paddy, which are the kind of the grassy looking icons. And I believe that may impact like movement speed to move from that area, to move in and out of those different areas, but then potentially the types of events that you'll encounter when you're in that space, so that it makes sense that you pulled a certain event given the type of terrain you're in. Anyway, that's the game board. So let's move on to the next item in the box, which is called the double-sided combat boards. So trying to quickly ascertain what the difference between the two sides are. Sorry that I'm not allowing you guys to see this. I think there's no mechanical difference. Literally everything looks the same between this side and this side except the background. This looks more like an open field or village, I guess, is maybe what this is trying to represent, and then this side is just more of a jungle. It's unfortunate that there's nothing else that makes the two sides different. I feel like I'm missing something. I can't imagine that's the only difference, but that's all I can tell right now. So anyway, this is the combat board. This is how, when you start actually engaging the enemy, you're going to be laying down their circle discs to provide some sort of dimensions to the battlefield of where the enemies are and in relation to your Marines. And I don't remember all the combat rules off the top of my head. Like I said, they kind of unfortunately changed the original combat system to what they ended up with, which it is what it is. But that's what this is used for. So let's move into the next part of the components, and we have dice. So you can see different size of die. These are hit point dice, so I'm not sure if you even roll these or if they're just used simply for tracking purposes, since they're called hit point dice. And then you have yellow, white, and purple dice. So the purple ones are called focus dice, the yellow ones are called crit dice, and the white are called strike dice. And I don't know functionally how they differ from each other, but I believe, that you're rolling the dice. Well, we briefly did see that there's trait checks that you'll be rolling dice for. But then there's also the there's combat, of course, that you're rolling die in this game for. So I'm assuming that's what there's reasons for different colors once you get into combat. And then you have these 6-sided, what are called threat dice, and they have a few different colored faces. This is green, red, yellow, and then gray. So I imagine over the course of a mission, the threat's increasing, and you're rolling the threat die to determine either if you're increasing the threat or if you're within the threat of the color you rolled, maybe a certain event will happen or enemies appear, that sort of thing. But that's what these dice are for. So that's the dice in the game. It's very nice of them to include a pencil, I guess, for the logbook. You know, this is kind of a nice touch, but yeah, there's a pencil. Okay, and then we have red cubes, and the red cubes, I don't know if it just they just call them red wooden cubes, so I'm not immediately sure if these are for damage. My assumption whenever I see red cubes is that they're for damage tracking, but we did already look at the fact that there's the hit point dice, so I'm not 100% sure if these are also then used for damage in some way. But lots of baggies, which is always a nice gesture given the fact that there's tons of tokens that come with the game. Although I do prefer just a good insert when you have so many tokens, because then it makes you as the player try to figure out what's the optimal way of storing all the different types of tokens. But regardless, they didn't have to give us biggies, and they did. And then we have a bunch of these. I don't know if the right term is tarot size. They're definitely bigger than playing card size cards. But a bunch of this size type of card included. And I will open them for us to look at. So we have, it just says fire support card. I guess these are called 12 double-sided specialization cards and 1 fire support card. Okay, so there's 1 fire support card. That I guess you can use to simulate receiving fire support from artillery or airstrike during the course of a mission. And then you have all of these specialization cards. So these represent the unique abilities of the different Marines. I'm not sure if you immediately get all of these abilities at the start of the game or if you kind of have to upgrade into them. But that's what all of these different cards are for, illustrating the different abilities of the different Marines. So, I find that thematic aspect of this game, that you have 6 different Marines that are going to have these different abilities. Hopefully they're different enough where then you feel like each Marine is functionally different during the course of a mission, and you feel the value of each Marine for their given strengths. But anyway, that's what these are for. So next we have Marine profile cards. Okay, so these are the different Marines that come with the game. I guess I didn't necessarily think there was actual unique people representing each of the Marines. I thought they were just generic. Generic. So that's a nice touch that they give you. That they give you a bunch of different Marines to try out that are asymmetric. Sorry, I'm kind of getting off camera here. That are asymmetric. You can see the values of the different Marines are different. And these are the 6 different traits that you'll have skill checks for during the course of the game. So each of these is different in that regard. The top values are the stress and damage threshold. So there's two. The game kind of, I guess, is trying to simulate the 2 different health aspects of the Marines, their mental state and their physical state. So, which I think is probably thematic. That maybe physically you might have absolutely no wounds, but your mental state is just so diminished to the point where you're not functioning as a soldier anymore. So I think that's kind of cool. The game is simulating that. And then this number is the load capacity. So I assume how much equipment they can carry with them. And also it looks like there's, it looks like almost all of them have then their own unique skill to provide even an additional number of, or different additional flavor. And then 7 just is their wounds track, which it looks like they all have the same amount of wounds they can carry. And 6 is this is called the conditions track. And then here you have a spot for I guess that ID marker, and then here it's a box for KIA or an evac Marine ID marker. Anyway, so that's what all these cards are for. So adds some replayability if you want to play through a campaign or mission with different the different types of Marines that come with the game. And then you have, so if it's not surprising based on what it says on the cards themselves, but these are the encounter cards. So it looks like, no trying to spoiler alert here, but here you have different encounter cards based on the mission. So I assume these are randomly drawn during the course of a mission, and therefore you may get different encounter cards based on which mission, there's maybe adds a little replayability. And then there's these general encounter cards as well. I'll read one for a sense of flavor here, but this one's called Bobby Trap, and I'm assuming that's not a spelling mistake. A hidden punji stick pit, Marine tests. So there's an eye test, it looks like, and success or failure. Either you survive, I guess, the you miss you either are able to avoid that booby trap, or you're taking wound cards. So there's events like that you're gonna deal with, and that's what these cards are for. And that's the large size cards that come with the game. Now we have then the more traditional playing deck size cards here that I'll quick go through. And sorry. Just checking some things here. Okay, so we have, these are the wound cards. Oops. So these are the wound cards. And looks like you're randomly drawing wounds. Some are called flesh wound, which I guess are not as serious, as then you have deep wounds, and then you have critical wounds. And I guess you have the the headshot representing, which is a KIA. So there's that random chance, I guess, you're going to get any of these, and I'm sure you just don't want to be drawing wound cards in general, but that's what these are for. Next, you have condition cards. So in addition to wounds, you can also, I guess, gain other types of conditions. Okay, they just call it mild condition to be generic. Moderate condition. Severe condition, I guess, maybe not representing combat-related ailments, but maybe self-inflicted ailments based on the images on the cards. But these are, I guess, things you'll be dealing with throughout the course of a campaign of Purple Haze. And I recently watched the movie Apocalypse Now. I think is the one with Michael Douglas, or not Michael Douglas. Gosh. Not Emilio Estevez, I don't think. I'm blanking. I feel like an idiot right now that I'm not saying the right actor's name, but okay, so next we have a Claymore mine card. I don't know why it's off on its own, but it's its own thing. So that's the Claymore mine card. Then we have weapon cards. So this will be fun to look at the different weapons. We have the M16 assault rifle, several of these, an M14 rifle. I believe upper right. Okay, let me quick try to find the breakdown of a weapon card, since these are, it's always fun in my mind to look at weapon stuff. So it unfortunately doesn't necessarily, there's one thing in the book that kind of explains what I want to say the upper right is relevant for range. Sorry that I'm taking a little bit of a pause here as I... Oh, here we go. Okay. So firing modes. The reason that the fact that there's two rows of, you can see that there's a row on the top of stuff and a row on the bottom. Those are the firing modes. And then depending on the firing mode, you get different variables, different values. One says it requires an order to use. Oh, that's the first symbol, is just it requires an order, I guess. Okay, that makes sense. Initiative cost. So the second value represents the initiative that you need to spend. So that's kind of, I mean, they changed combat around from what I remember originally, but then there was this initiative aspect that kind of simulated, even going back to the RPG, traditional RPG game, when you start a combat, everyone gets placed in an initiative track, and then you follow that initiative track to determine who's taking the next action. So that's kind of utilized in this game, where after you take an action, that I don't know if I assume it works for both enemies and your Marines, but it pushes you back that many initiative points, let's call them, or whatever, and now you have to wait to take another action. But that's what this is basically used, that these values are used for, is to kind of simulate that you've taken this action, now you have to wait before you're going to be able to do something again. Next is base strike and crit dice. The starting strike and crit dice you will use for the test. So I guess the dice are rolling. The top firing mode looks like you're rolling an extra crit dice. 5 is ammo type required if the weapon requires a specific ammo type to fire in this mode. So this is saying that you need to have, I guess, an ammo clip because you're probably really unloading the lead using this top firing mode. And then 6, aimed shot possible. So if the firing mode allows for an aim shot, it will have the non-striked out icon, and if not, it will have this icon. So not 100% sure what aimed shot and plot would mean, but I assume it increases your chances of hitting. So of course it makes sense then if this is like the fully automatic mode, your ability to do an aim shot aren't possible. And then at the end here you have range. Each weapon has a maximum range and range-based modifiers. So So there's a few different symbol. I guess the red explosion represents a burst effect. So I think that means you maybe can potentially hit more than one target. But the range and the range I think is the same actually. You still 4 spaces away, but then if it's a filled in purple triangle, that means you get an additional purple die. So essentially you get additional purple die up to 3 spaces away with the second firing mode, meaning it's like more accurate, but then you have more opportunity to do more damage to more people with this top firing mode. But that's the breakdown of one weapon card. I won't go through that level of detail for the remaining, but that's the M16 assault rifle. Then we have the M14 rifle, which there he goes up to 5 spaces away. So that one has even more of a range. Then we have the M60 machine gun, which can go up to 5 and has that burst effect for 3 different range levels. Well, geez. Oh, yeah. And rolling 8 dice. So it's rolling a lot of die, too. That sounds like a fun gun to have. Then you have the M1911 pistol, which is just range of 2. And then, M79 grenade launcher. Now, that sounds fun. Not exactly sure what the difference in an up-down... add or subtract a focus star to test a targeted enemy at that range. Okay. But the sniper rifle goes up to 5 and is purple. You get the extra purple die for all of the ranges. M72 La looks kind of like a bazooka of some sort. A flamethrower. So 10 dice. But only 1 range. And obviously these cards are also talking about, I believe this is, talking about the cover that enemies will have. So that's an important part of combat too. A shotgun. M3 submachine gun, only a range of 3. AK-47 assault rifle, 2 firing modes, and then a Soviet revolver, just a range of 2. So, those are the different weapons. Looks like a pretty nice variety. I don't know if there's duplicates in here, so part of me wishes there was more than just this. But still, I guess I'm glad there's as many as there are. So that's what those cards are. And then the last... These are called Lucky... Oh, no. Sorry. There's a couple... So these are Lucky Charm cards. Is what they're called. And it looks like they're just items that somehow you can come across that maybe give you a nice little bonus. These look like kind of spoiler things. I don't know if I want to go through those in detail. And then you have... Oh, these are... I was going to call these boon cards, but these are actually called boon cards. And... I guess I'm not exactly sure how these are used in the game, but they're boons. They're allowing you to, I guess, re-roll. You know, that's kind of like an RPG term, I feel, is boons and stuff. So that's what these cards are for. And going back to the box, you can see we've now wiped everything out. So that's the core content of Purple Haze. I'm a little overwhelmed. Which is a good... I mean, I will say right now I'm a little overwhelmed by everything I just went through. There's just a lot going on in this game. I really hope everything that's that's designed into this game feels like it has a place, right? That there's not things in this game just for the sake of having it in the game, or having a mechanic just for the sake of having that mechanic. But this is still a game that I don't really know what I would compare it to, which is why I got this game. Like, I wanted something different in my collection, and that's, from going through the components, what I feel this game is offering. So and I'm just kind of quickly looking through these expansions to see if I want to also open up the expansion content and go through everything's in these boxes. So this Tunnel Rat expansion explains how it includes 3 scenarios and brand new mechanics. I know the shrink wrap kind of messes with being able to read that, so I apologize. In this 3 scenarios and brand new mechanics, including tense melee combat, it offers a vastly different experience to the Purple Haze core game and a variety of new events and encounters. So that's what Tunnel Rats is. I was looking at the components, and it looks like, I mean, there's tunnels involved, which I guess, of course, maybe makes sense based on the name of this expansion, but definitely looks like it adds some content, or adds some interesting content, I should say, not just additional cards to the core game. And then we also have here the expansion Born to Kill. And this says, capture a heavily fortified hill, track down a wayward Marine officer, engage in 4 widely different missions inspired by some of the most popular Vietnam War Hollywood movies. So, I guess just additional missions. But I won't extend this any longer, I think, and go through those right now. I will take the time to open up this miniature that I received, though, with my Kickstarter. or game found, I guess is technically what it was. And here it is, a Marine. Not sure if it, like I said, has a functional purpose in the game, since there's 6 Marines technically that you're playing as, but it'd be fun to paint a Marine, I guess. I've not done that. I don't have any historical war type of minis I've painted, I don't think, so that I should do that. But all right, that is Purple Haze, everyone. Thanks so much for watching this unboxing. As always, I apologize for the pauses as I'm trying to digest what it is and I'm looking at. Again, I don't spend the time to re-evaluate everything that has gone on with these crowdfund projects. I'm involved in several of them, and there's so much history. There's so much story and that goes on throughout the course of these campaigns. So some of these things that some of my comments may have, I'm sure, have been discussed ad nauseum over the course of the last 2.5 years after this game was funded. So I'm just giving you my personal thoughts and feelings of the game as I'm opening it. So with that said, hopefully though this is a game maybe you've backed yourself and are planning to receive soon, or you have received it and you're waiting to open it, or this maybe has ignited your interest in looking into this game more yourself, because I do believe it's going to be available now retail. You can, it's from Phalanx Publishing, so you definitely should be able to get a hold of this game if you so choose. And obviously, I'm hoping to get it to the table myself here sooner than later, since it definitely looks like a really cool game experience. So don't forget to check out the link tree here for the other Talking Cardboard social media outlets that we're involved in, besides just YouTube. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We definitely appreciate your support. But with that said, my name's Nick from Talking Cardboard, and hope you enjoy, for those of you in the US, hopefully you enjoy this Thanksgiving weekend. Hopefully I'll get some board games to the table over the course of the weekend. Hopefully you all can get some board games to the table over the long weekend. So until next time, have a great rest of your night.